sprouting from the earth like myrmidons on the warpath. We return! Welcome, one and all, to After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind Hallowed Haven Studios Productions. I'm your host for today, Bookkeeper, and our guests for this discussion of Season 3, Episode 4 of Scion Apotheosis are the players of Andre and Clint. It's Solomon and Gavin Cash. Welcome!
Howdy, hello, and thank you.
Heyo, happy to be here.
How y'all doing?
Oh, so far so good. How about yourself?
Another beautiful day. It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Fair enough.
So, figured we'd start this out on a positive note. Question for both of you, appropriate given the quest and the oncoming of autumn. What's your character's perspective on death?
Ooh, do you want to take this one first, Saul? Because I have no clue what Andre would think about this.
Sure. Andre sees death as being just kind of like part of the ride of existence, especially now knowing that there are various afterlives and various underworlds that accept the dead.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, he just kind of sees it as, at the very least, he'll go and he'll get to see his uncle or granduncle, as it were. And he just hopes that with all that he did, that he is deemed worthy of being in Elysium.
Right, because drink from Lethe, wander around just forgetting everything forever. That's kind of...
Yeah, he'd rather not. He has people he wants to remember. He has things he wants to remember.
Does Andre, I don't know how the Greek pantheon does it. Is there some sort of recurrence or bringing people back to Earth after they've spent time in Hades or anything like that? Or is it like once you're in that underworld, you're there for good?
As far as I remember, it's generally you're there for good. There have been a number of stories of people trying to bring others back from the underworld, but from my own memories, it tends not to go so well.
Yeah.
So
everyone remembers Orpheus, which, if I recall correctly, is now the musical Hades Town.
Yep.
I guess the little follow-up question I'll do before I dive into Clint's answer, would Andre be happy to stay down there, or would he want to be out?
Andre is the one who wants to do things. He just doesn't really seem to like sit still for very long. He wants to constantly be doing something to help himself, those around him, or just the effort with the Titans. So I think he would be okay being there as long as he was still able to like make things to assist with whatever needed to be done. So like if he could still even just be doing things to handle areas of the underworld for his uncle, he would be happy to do so. He just wants to be helpful. He doesn't want to just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah, I kind of figured that would be the direction we would go in, because Clint, as maybe has been picked up as a very helpful individual when he can be. And so when it comes to death, Clint doesn't really see it as an end or even a middle. It's just we've seen that there are ghosts around. Clint has been seeing ghosts for a very long time at this point,
Right.
and is able to communicate with them, to a little interaction, touch them. And he's seen and talked to them, and he understands that they have their unlives going on. They've got things that are going and events to deal with, problems to face down, even while being dead. So Clint doesn't see death, at least in the mortal realm, as something that is a thing to be afraid of, or anything to really be concerned by, other than if I'm dead, I can't help the people I'm currently helping right now.
Right.
So as long as he may be a blaze of glory or some sort of fashion where he gets to go out helping people and then transitions to the next life or unlife and essentially doing as Andre would be doing, helping out if the Tuatha have a sort of business sector in the undead world or just a farm to work on, he'll be down there helping out. I also don't know if he would stay, though. Given his connection with death, his connection with the Morrigan, and his constant visibility with spirits and people who maybe just haven't passed on yet or have passed on and are having a great time doing it. He kind of prefers the meat space that he's gotten used to.
Yeah. Death would involve essentially. It's interesting because they have the death pomp, they have the death purview, but they also have the psychopomp purview. Even though psychopomp traditionally is leading the dead to the afterlife, death for I imagine for people like Clint and for any children of a death related god, it's more you're moving from the dispatch end of the psychopomp duty to the receiving end.
Yeah, absolutely. And given how Clint currently is a very passionate and compassionate person, very kind and someone who wants to help others as much as he can, being one of those people that guides maybe souls from the entrance of the underworld to wherever they belong or to a place that would suit them the best, that sounds like a job he would enjoy doing once he's done his work as a mortal being, if that ever happens.
It's a bit like being a greeter at Walmart, but you're dead.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
Have a sticker.
Wouldn't it be more like IKEA because you're never getting out?
At least IKEA has good food, so I hope the underworld does too. Based on what we've seen with the Toa, no, yeah,
The Twaha.
Twaha. Thank you. Based on what we've seen there, there's always going to be good food no matter where you're at. So,
Unless you're in hell, in which case the food is not so great.
yeah, there is that, isn't there?
The dang Norseman. Always.
Good thing we're not Norse.
Yeah, it's either you're in Valhalla or you're suffering.
Given that Clint is a warrior, he might, if the Norse things do happen and he gets pulled out of his pantheon into someone else's underworld, I think Valhalla could be okay for him.
I think Valhalla would suit Clint. We're gonna drink and party. We're gonna drink and party through the night. We're gonna get up in the morning and go fight. Possibly carve each other to bits. As the sun goes down, we'll put ourselves back together and we'll do it all over again.
Right. And you're not really fighting someone that you hate. You just get to have fun fighting at that point. It's just
That's
a
right.
constant war.
Until Ragnarok, in which case everyone just goes out to fight the end.
Yep.
Yeah. But then you're given a real purpose to your fighting, and that makes it even better.
Fair.
So, well, speaking of purposes, Gavin, can you take us through the thought process that led up to Clint asking for tutelage from his fellow scions? How did that sort of develop?
Absolutely. Well, I can tackle it first out of character because at every game table, you need to have at least a little bit of balance to a character. And Clint was so top heavy on the combat end of he can punch, he can throw, he can dodge, he can deal with all sorts of things. He can take a hit and keep standing. But at the end of the day, he's not really a puzzle solver.
Right.
And we face a lot of puzzles.
You do.
So having that intelligence be a weakness point for him was a growing issue where I as a player couldn't really contribute too terribly much to solving those problems with an approach that was thoughtful and logical. It was
Right.
all sort of emotional driven, and that fits for Clint, but we still need to have at least a little logic in there.
Sure.
So out of character, I was working on, hey, how do I build it to where Clint gets a little bump in intelligence, and maybe we can utilize some of those boons that come later down the line a bit better than just a 4 or 5 dice pool. In character, however, was a little bit trickier because Clint has never really valued scholastic learning as much as he has valued the professions, the trades, especially what he sees Andre doing of working on something physical with his hands. He's doing something that it's intelligent, but it's laborious. It requires effort. And that is a big appealing factor to Clint. And so we've got someone on the team now that can inspire that creativity and desire to grow and be a little bit better, which is a big linchpin of Clint finally breaking down and saying, hey, we've got a student here, we've got a teacher, and we've got someone that is actively not under, working with one of the gods of creation and making things.
Mhm.
I can
We
cook.
I saw a sticker on a truck the other day said "Dirty hands, clean money."
Yes,
That seems like a very Clint kind of vibe.
exactly. Before he was a scion, he was a guy throwing trash bags into a back of a waste disposal vehicle. He was a garbage slinger. So having that physicality and the basics of physics of I can just toss this at a certain strength level or whatever the generic version for a someone who doesn't think in weights or in numbers can just utilize physics to the best of his abilities. But the application of those numbers, now that we've got big threats, now that we've got more accuracy required in the way we throw things, physics is suddenly becoming a really big interest of Clint's.
Just how far can I throw this baseball? And if
Turns
I
out
hit the moon, which gods am I going to anger?
that's the fun part. I don't know. I don't know about the gods, but I know I can hit that moon if I try hard enough. The consequences will happen no matter what. That's what we've got friends for. And see, that's why I need the intelligence points. So I don't do that. There has to be logic there. I don't want to hurt my friends with consequences.
Most of the time.
Usually.
Um, Solomon, we got a kind of another glimpse into Andre and Hephaestus's relationship and a mention of his mom. Um, what can you tell us about his life outside this band? He's a newcomer, and it's clear he's got this other life with between his parents and his significant other that he's calling up. Um, can you give us sort of a back brief on the many friends and family of Andre outside of what we're seeing in the game?
Absolutely. Well, for starters, friends is a bit of a strong term. He doesn't have a lot of them because he is kind of like his dad. He's very much I want to get into the workshop. I want to keep building things and making things that are useful to the war effort and to existence as a whole and to reality. And that doesn't leave me a lot of time for stuff outside of that. But he has a few buddies that he mostly focuses on family, on the other members of the Greek pantheon. Anytime that he can go and hang out with another member of the pantheon, be it a scion or on rare occasions, like one of the nicer entities, like uh, Dionysus's crowd of like satyrs or the dryads with Damon, he'll gladly go do so because he sees family being a very important thing, as opposed to just being a messy thing that people try not to talk about. He wants to try to embrace his family for all it's worth, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
His father he works with as much as he can. He understands that his dad is busy, and he understands that there's a lot of shit that goes into being the god of creation for the Greek pantheon. But he also is so appreciative that he has Hephaestus for a father, because he knows enough of the stories even before he became part of the Decathlon war effort that he got lucky. That a lot of the other parents are not as involved or as kind or as forgiving or as accepting. So he's just very happy with anytime he gets to spend with his father, even though he knows that there's other things that his dad has to do. And he's also very appreciative that his dad does actually give a shit about the mortals that he spent time with, that he, like his mortal mother, who is someone who is of great intelligence in the chemical and pharmaceutical field, but has been undergoing serious deteriorative health conditions So basically, for the longest time, he was the sole person to take care of her until his dad came in and then helped him by making him a nurse, being one of his golden servants that will basically just stay there and take care of his mother. As for other friends, he has a few. The biggest one is his significant other that he met when he was basically on a job making a whole lot of weapons for a bigger event,
Yeah.
a big fight.
Talk to us about a relationship with a scion of Kali.
Well, it's not just as like wild as people might think, because with the Hindu gods, a lot of them have different aspects of their being. Like as he said in the session, there's Smashana Kali, which is the aspect of the destroyer, which is what most people think of when they think of Kali. But there's also the aspect of Kali that is the mother, Kali Ma, which Mia more represents. She is very motherly, she's very kind, she's someone that he wasn't really expecting to get along with too much, but when it came down to it, when the job was done, she was wanting to take him out to get a drink, and then things just kind of went from there. They were able to talk and trust and react well to one another because they both understood that this life is very rough, this life is very brutal, but you have to have someone that you can fall back on.
I just keep thinking, I don't think as much of the destroyer or the mother because I'm 12 that way, and I think she gets handsy.
I mean, sometimes.
A question for both of you, kind of related to that, is and just contrasting the relationship Andre has with his dad versus what Clint has with his mother. I'll ask you to choose who to vote off the island. Who among the gods would you never want to be a scion of?
Ooh. Huh. That's pretty tough because they all have their benefits to them, but
Yeah.
huh. Suppose I would not want to be a part of honestly the whole Norse as a group because there's a lot of brutality and things that go on over there.
Mm-hmm.
But more specifically, I don't think I'd want to be a scion of Thor. The dude is cool. He's a protector. There's a lot of stuff that would align very well with Clint, but I
Mm-hmm.
have a feeling that by diving into the mythology and looking a little bit deeper of how he would work with his scions, maybe as far as my biased understanding goes, uh, maybe not the best dude to be friends with or the child of. He has a lot of kids, at least in mythology.
Yep.
Some of them go on to do great things, and some of them go on to never be heard of again. Kind of worried that, Clint might fall into the latter, given his proclivity of constantly asking questions and trying to connect with someone on that level.
Right.
Uh,
A,
well,
a person with like a real need for outside validation. There's just a ton of, you can make a whole list of people in Norse mythology who would exploit that sort of thing.
exactly. And the Norse pantheon does have quite a few tricksters that are not necessarily just Loki, but it seems that everyone in that pantheon has at least put on different airs or disguised themselves as different times. And Clint doesn't do that. He's very upfront with who he is and who he wants to be.
Mm. Saul?
I have a slightly different answer. I actually would not want to be in any way associated with the Aztec pantheon. It's Lati.
Mm.
Ooh.
If I had to, or Aslanti, sorry. If I had to pick a particular god, I would definitely not want to be associated with out of them. It would definitely be Tlazolteotl, the goddess of filth,
Yep.
Yeah, that's
because she is very focused on like grossness and filth and sin, and that's just bad vibes all around. It also is just that the Aslanti see life as being very cheap. It's very useful when you're able to put it onto a altar and sacrifice it, but it
Right.
just seems very like we
Well,
don't care about what you do as long as you do it for us and you bleed for us.
is it that life is cheap, or is it that individuals are cheap?
I definitely
Like,
think it's more that individuals are cheap.
right. Like, I'll kill these 6 people because I have 6 billion to worry about.
Exactly.
Yeah. And see, Clint could do that. Clint could be fine with, no problem. I'll be the sacrifice that'll save a whole bunch of people.
And then your parents go, no, you have to kill these 6 people.
Mm-hmm. That's
Oh,
when
no,
it
wait.
goes wrong.
Yeah.
There's the disconnect.
For
Yep.
for my own part, I made a ton of scions in the past, and the one I made, I was like, this would be absolutely awful, was a scion of Aphrodite,
Ooh, what would
Oh
make it
yeah.
awful?
because you can never be mad at her.
Oh,
She could treat you like absolute garbage, and every time she shows back up, nope, you love her again.
I've got practice with that. Don't even need any sort of influence for the Morgans. She's mommy.
Just the way in which I believe the texts make pretty clear. Aphrodite, you don't really get a choice as to whether or not you fall in love with Aphrodite upon seeing her. Uh, that it combine that with the sort of with any sort of level of indifferent parentage, and that's a nightmare waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But let's turning to a more sort of positive note in terms of the ideas of romance. Um, Hades appears to be trying to do some sort of grand romantic gesture for Persephone in the labor that he's laid out for y'all. And so, another question for both of you: thinking about your own characters, what would they see as a grand romantic gesture? What sort of thing would they do to show their significant other, no, I care about you?
Uh, Saul, do you want to go first?
I'll let you go first with this one.
You got it. So Clint is, as I mentioned a little bit before, he's a cook, right? He loves to make things that are food related. And so when it comes as a big gesture for someone, just as he's done for someone else before, to display like, hey, you're God, let's celebrate you, let's have a big feast. He focused on what kind of food aligns with what they believe in or what they represent, and let's build something that appeals to them and makes them feel good. And extending that out, Clint is definitely the kind of person who would, as soon as it's the first date, I'm going to invite you to have a dinner that I'm making for you. We don't need to go out to dinner. Uh, every oh, apologies, dog's excited.
Nope.
Uh, but he is very much a service kind of person. He's looking for ways to show his love with things or with actions that he can do.
Mhm.
And given that his skill set is primarily in culinary cooking in that regard, he would be aiming to make like a 5-course dinner. That would be his goal of like, hey, I like you a lot. I'm going to cook for
Okay.
you. I'm going to make you the best meal you've ever had. And then we're going to cuddle. On a bigger scale, though, I'm still thinking on like a very large scale sign of showing love or affection. Because when you're a scion, you've got so many more resources and you can do so much larger things than just make a meal.
Solomon, what do you think?
Well, the easy answer would be for Andre to focus on just making something like a statue or some kind of like art piece, because he actually is also fairly artistic when it comes to making things with his hands. But I think to really show someone that he gives that much care about them and wants to be with them that much, I think the main thing he would just do is devote his time to them. when he's so easy to get into the workshop and to just start working on things, he would just set everything down and focus on just them, not making anything else for anyone else, not just trying to get something done quickly. He would want to devote his time to just focusing on the person he's with. Because making things for him is easy to do. He devoted his, like, just sitting still and doing nothing but focusing on talking and spending time with someone else is a little more important to him, because time is very important.
I think connecting a little bit of what Clint is capable of, maybe in the future as well, is we've mentioned it before of throwing something at the moon and seeing what would happen. I'm kind of along the line of sticking a love letter or some sort of sentimental thing to the spear, the toothpick,
Mm-hmm.
literally throwing it at the moon and having it come back with a little bit of moon dust on it.
Ooh.
A little bit of something special that you just can't get anywhere else.
I think that's really cool. I think I like Saul's answer because it reaches back into sort of it reminds us that the Scions are human and that they remember things. Like time is one of those things you don't get back, and so devoting it to someone, to anyone, whatever you give your time to, that's where you've given your attention, and in the end, that's what you've given yourself to. And so taking time to go, no, I'm not going to do anything else right now. I'm going to spend this time with you. I think is neat and an interesting take from someone who's generally going to be very focused on making and building things.
I think devoting a lot of time and attention to someone is really cool. Clint, given the fact that Clint and his player both have ADHD, sometimes that's not the easy thing to do, which does make it a little more important.
Right.
I like it.
Now, Solomon, Andre, we talked a little bit about his particular relationship with his dad, and he discovered that Alexandra, at least in her words, has a positive relationship with her own parent. But he's also, pretty literate in like the Greek myths. He knows how the gods have treated each other. How do those stories influence Andre's perspective on the other gods in his family, or do they?
They certainly do. It's a mix of what gods he actually has had interactions with, which I could see him definitely having interactions with some of the like children of Zeus. I don't think that he's ever maybe spent too much time with his grandfather or his granduncles or his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that he's spent a little bit of time, especially with like, he might have met Ares because he's definitely probably one of the people who was working to help equip his kids.
Right.
Uh, and like the stories definitely influence how he sees others, because even if the stories are fantastical and like not all completely true, there's usually at least a shred of it. So it especially affects like how he sees Hera. Not just the story with what happened to his dad, but the stories of like her vindictiveness and the way she gets revenge against Zeus for the shit he pulls.
Right.
And like that affects like how he sees her and how he felt, especially for his aunt Moira, who was a daughter of Hera. He's just like, man, that's got to be fucking rough.
There's a lot of walking around eggshells around Nana.
Oh yeah. No kidding. And then of course he just expects Zeus to not even know who the hell he is. He expects Zeus to fully just greet him with a "Hey, champ."
I mean, when you've
But
got
yeah,
so many kids, it's hard to keep track.
yep. Kids and grandkids. But yeah, he also just generally lets the story sort of like give him a baseline to work with, but then he likes to make his own beliefs. Like he does. He probably originally saw Ares as being a meathead asshole because of the stories of what he did, especially involving Aphrodite. But I definitely think that there's a bit of a respect to them and understanding that, like Hephaestus said, he's not all that bad. He might be a bit of a dick at times, but who isn't?
Right. Now, Clint, we had this moment in the last episode where everyone's calling their significant other, and then Clint texts somebody.
He sure did.
I won't ask you to spoil like whom you were texting unless you want to. But you see, Clint seems to be surrounded by a lot of people who have these sort of long-term relationships. Some of them may be on shakier ground than others, but there's a lot of like more serious relationships around him. Does Clint ever think about having a more serious relationship with someone, or is he kind of a no? I'm still in the footloose and fancy free stage.
Clint is in a strange predicament. Clint is a little bit of a foot in both ends. He sees that the people around him are in these committed relationships, that they confer benefits, they give the support that these people need, and they're able to support the person on the other end. While even not necessarily being in person, they've got phone calls, they can connect, they can share their love for each other and say, hey, this is going to happen, keep an eye out or keep a lookout for me, things like that. And Clint is over here with people that he has relationships with. However, they're not as in depth or as long term, and he's happy-ish. He sees that there's some great benefits there, but he also feels like the moment he really commits himself to one of these things, he's going to be called off to do something else, that he's never going to be able to give that person the attention that they deserve and that they need. So he feels a little inferior, a little lesser than his friends in that regard. But at the same time, he's very proud of the connections that he's made and that he continues to go on with. While the person that he did reach out to just wasn't available, unfortunately, the text message, I'll go ahead and say it. There's no problem there because he would say it to his team as well. He reached out to, I believe it's Kareem Hakem from season 2, the old cuddle buddy of sorts. And his text wasn't particularly romantic or sentimental in that regard, but it was more of a, hey, I haven't heard from you. How have you been? Here's a little update on my life. I kind of miss you and I hope you're doing well. Just let me know how you're doing. Because he hasn't heard from Kareem. He remembers that he's always in a tough problem, given that he's the scion of someone who is less than welcome by some. He's always facing threats and dangers that are to some insurmountable. Even to Clint, they're impressive that he's still going in the face of everything. And it's left a mark on Clint of, while maybe we're not, destined to be a long-term relationship or something like that, maybe this could be the start of something more.
Okay.
But he's also wary. He's on that, like I said, he's got a foot in both directions. I don't know if I'm ready to help someone and to be that help that they need, but I want to.
Right. It's like I'm already kind of a partner to the members of my band. How do I take that next step to like the capital P partner for a person I may see like once a quarter?
Right.
Yeah.
And is that once a quarter really enough for either one of us? Is that going to be enough for me as a scion that's constantly on the move and fighting for my life, protecting these other people? I could die at any given moment due to just the gods being assholes or to Gwen showing up and really wreaking havoc again. Do I want to impose that upon someone else, that hurt that comes with having a partner and then losing them? But also I'm so familiar with death, and I know that whenever I'm gone, I'll still be able to connect with them. Maybe they won't know I'm there, but I'll be able to watch over and help them as best as I can. But it's probably not enough for a partner, a capital P partner.
Right. Now, Related to that, going back to a question for both of you. Obviously, Andre is a newcomer, so you have different levels of like friendship / relationship with the other members of the band. But in terms of providing support and help, how much would you say your character feels inclined to involve themselves in sort of say the personal issues of the band? For just as an example, what, if anything, do you think Andre or Clint would have done if that really tense, it was a great dramatic moment, but that really tense conversation between Coda and Ned had happened like in person with them being there?
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, because that was a heavy, heavy conversation.
Right?
And to presume that you can help is a little presumptive, I guess.
Sure.
Um, but Clint would do his best. He's gotten really familiar with Coda. He understands like how they choose to cope or how she chooses to cope with things. Uh, how there's often avoidance involved. How sometimes we just let's do something else to distract ourselves or get really high and think it through in a different way. Uh, so Clint would probably offer up a spliff of of her own sort, light up, and just all right, let's have a chat. Tell me how you're feeling and how I can help you get through it. And hell, if you can't get through it, let's just move on to something else.
The way I see it, Andre would probably offer something similar, though his would probably just be alcohol since he doesn't smoke much aside from his own actual cigarettes. Uh, but I think that with Andre, it would be a little less. It would be supportive in a way that's more blunt. He would be willing to definitely hear out Coda and want to hear her side of things, but would also be a little more upfront and a little less easy about what how he sees things. Like he would say, "Yeah, I understand. You made a decision, and it's really rough that she's taking it this hard. But he also decided to make this decision before Moira's corpse was cold. That kind of thing. Like he would try to give an idea from both sides and just show her that it's it is hard and he wants to help out, but he also wants her to see Net's side of things and understand why she's being as cold as she is. Though again, he is also a little bit judgmental because he's older and he sees them both as being fetuses
Right.
and being very like if one can be high school with this, it's at least to his own viewpoint, it's very high school drama comparatively.
I can see
Okay.
that. Yeah. Clint,
At
when
least
it
with the way
comes
that they're handling things, the whole silent treatment and the short, terse answers, as opposed to sitting
Sure.
down and talking about it.
right, there you go. Yeah, Clint would given the history going on here, the choice to try and redeem someone. Clint has also lost people, but he has always been someone that gives people multiple chances anyways. He's naturally aligned with the spirit of the group of yeah, sure. Someone's made mistakes and done bad things, but of course we got to give them the opportunity to do better. So he has a harder time seeing it from Nut's perspective, or all these other people that have been so hard on the group of, hey, you're aiding and abetting someone that's been murderous and made all these poor choices. And it's like, we've all made bad choices. We've all had to make mistakes to get to where we are, and we're going to make more mistakes to get to where we're going. It's what you do after those mistakes that matter.
It's interesting because there's a lot of this is why the family members of the deceased don't sit on juries.
Right. Yeah.
It's like there's a because sure, I mean you killed my family member. No, I'm never going to forgive you. I don't care what you do. I don't care. You could save 1,000 people from here to doomsday. You still killed my family member, and that's what I'm going to remember. On the other hand, people who don't have that same immediacy are like, but aren't we? Don't we want to be better than that? and it's a perfectly understandable reaction to go, no, we don't, because we're angry.
Right.
Even if it's not necessarily it's not the decision we might make if we were looking at it rationally, because there's no inclination to look at it rationally.
Right.
Yep. See Andre's response with his 3 dots of vengeance.
Right.
He's very inclined to say, no, fuck this guy.
And yeah, that doesn't even bring up the idea of like people with the vengeance virtue of, no, I literally can't let this go.
Yep.
There is a force within my blood going, this person has to answer, has to pay for what they've done. And I don't know if just, a few months to a year or two of getting poison dripped in your face is enough.
And then on the other side, how does that at all make up or change what they've done in the past? You're just
Right.
locking them away to never be able to make up or do better.
Right. And that leads to a much broader discussion of what constitutes like recompense, or if there ever is sort of especially in terms of like something, a crime like murder, there's no making that up. It's just, it really is a question of what happens next, because you can't ever fix that.
Absolutely. Except for when you can, which is very, very, very rare and involves gods and
Right.
changing things. And the only way to make that happen is to get the gods to see it from a different perspective, too.
And well, we're talking about big philosophical things, so that clearly means the question and answer period is over, and we enter into the mighty free for all, where if you two have questions for each other, or for whatever weird reason a question for me, feel free to fire away. Um, what sort of things are you curious about the story so far?
I'm curious to know how you enjoy playing the gods that you have been chosen to portray. And is there any sort of things waiting in the wings for Hephaestus and Andre that you can share?
Well, for me, uh, I like playing the gods I've gotten to play. I love Lou. I love playing Lou. Um, it's interesting to have the one parent who's like adopting the problem child, and the one who has a child that he's is just generally proud of. Um, I really like both of them, also because I really like try. I enjoy trying to find my way to, how is this person trying? Is this person really interested in doing this work, and if so, what does that mean? Um, in terms of like what's coming for the future, the mighty storyteller doesn't tell me these things. As much as I try to ask, she is very good at keeping her secrets, and I am very good at practicing applied deniability.
Okay, speaking of you and the storyteller, do you at all have any influence over where Hephaestus's wheelchair ends up, or is that?
um, so far, I have not been countermanded on what the wheelchair does. So long as I figure, so long as it doesn't appear in a place or way that makes the player characters' lives easier, I can probably get away with stuff.
Wheelchairs like Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. He just pops up out of nowhere.
It just, why is it in Houston?
How the hell did it get into this restaurant in New Delhi?
For Solomon, hey, Andre has a partner, and we've talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
How did they meet?
They met when she and her band that she was with at the time had come to get a whole bunch of things made, specifically things that would help with a larger project, like getting a framework made for a device that one of the other creation gods was going for. It's kind of like how people were basically co-opting things out to Anvil, but they co-opted it out to him and some of his brothers and sisters instead. And they actually like got the work done, and instead of just saying thanks, good, just get back to your workshop, nerd, like some others might have. She wanted to take him out, which was a shock to him because he understands that he's not the best looking guy and that he's not like some like grand warrior or grand magician or strategist. He's just the guy who makes things. At least that's how he sees himself. And so when he actually got the chance to go out and spend time with someone, it was refreshing to him, to the point where anytime that she would come by, he would work to take her out, and they would just constantly go back and forth, taking each other out until it sort of just grew to being more than friends just going out to eat.
Aw, that's so cool.
Love it.
I have a question for Hephaestus.
Ooh.
Yes.
Or well, for Bookkeeper as Hephaestus. Was the copy of Edith Hamilton mythology a pull from BP, or was that a decision from you?
That was if I wanted to leave a clue behind, I could. And a book, we talked about a book, and I decided in the moment it would be Edith Hamilton's mythology, because that was one of the first mythology books that I got.
It's a good choice. It's got all the good myths in there, but it is also a brick of a book.
It is. But I figure if Hephaestus is going to leave you a book, it's going to be a book that you're like, oh, this is a lot.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to leave this gigantic book for my kid who doesn't have speed reading.
That's the best part. You're expected to learn all of this within a few minutes. Good luck.
It's like, I can build a car in a few minutes, not read a book.
As my children will tell you, I am, as a teacher, I am somewhat merciless.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anything else?
I have an important question for Gavin.
Ooh, okay. Fire away.
I do believe that this question was probably asked of the other two players with the last After Dawn, but I have a question for you. What is your thoughts on Andre?
Ooh, Clint
Don't
or
hold back now.
Gavin?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My thoughts as a player is Andre is fucking awesome. I love having a crafter on the team. I love having someone that has intelligence that is applied in a way that isn't just strategic and thoughtful. I'm really curious to see how he handles himself and sort of in conflict and in resolving puzzles or difficulties in that regard. We've just had a moment to really connect on a personal level, but not on a teamwork level. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But so far, I think he's really cool. I think he's got very solid understanding of what it means to be a scion already, which is kind of important for our group. He's got a great relationship with his father, which is something that some of us wish they had. And it's inspirational seeing, like, hey, these folks can get along and a new person gets added to the group. And instead of being judgmental, which he's already expressed his own feelings towards what the group is doing and why they're doing it, he's still along for the ride and doing what it seems to be is doing the right thing for him and the group in general. For Clint's a little jealous. Okay, Clint is very, very, incredibly jealous. Having a parent that is not only communicative but supportive and says "good job" every once in a while, uh, complimentary, that is able to support the team, that shows up and does stuff other than like a few words and then disappears into a cloud of crows mysteriously. Um, it's something that he wishes that he had. And it's something that it's kind of pushing himself to change how he interacts with his mom. Um, he thinks that while Andre may be a little bit of a nerd, he also has everything he needs to be a solid person overall. He's got the hard work, he's got a good ethic, he's got a sensible outlook on life, everything that you would need to have a good friend. He's a little sad that Andre doesn't partake because he prefers that over drinking. But at the same time, he'll still drink along with Andre, and I look forward to the day they get to have a party together.
I look forward to that as well. I'm sorry, I was just morbidly curious, and I thank you for answering honestly.
Yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on Clint so far, both as Solomon and as Andre?
Well, as Solomon, I always really liked Clint since his first appearance in season 2. I always liked how it was he's not a joke character, but he is very like whimsical, especially given like who he's a scion of. And I always thought that he added a bit of like levity to everything that was going on without being too much, without trying to make things just wacky. I liked how he was, even if he's not quick to immediately go into a scrap or a fight, he's quick to defend others, which is very important in my personal opinion of people.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also just like the fact that he is, despite knowing what his mom is like, is still trying to be a good child to her, even if possibly she doesn't deserve it. Anyway, uh, as Andre, he thinks Clint is a big heart and a great guy. He also thinks that Clint is dumb as a sack of hammers. So
Not wrong.
yeah. So he's just like, I need to keep an eye on him so that way he doesn't cause too much of a ruckus by saying something out of turn, like he was about to try with Huang Di. He was afraid what would happen if they actually piss off the emperor in his own palace. And he's wanting to look after Clint in a different way, and not just physically but like socially, like just wanting to make sure he doesn't say something wrong and piss off the wrong people or the wrong gods, and wants to help him to better himself so that way it's less of an issue, so that way they can all be a little more looking out for one another. He definitely sees Clint as being a very strong member of the team and understands why he's here. He just is really wanting to make sure that everyone can sort of shore up their own weaknesses in a way. He basically sees it as the craftsman. He sees wanting to help everyone out in what they're maybe not the best at, and figuring out how to either turn weaknesses into strengths or to shore up defenses against those weaknesses, like Coda's temper or Oliver's hesitance to get into things physically.
Get
Awesome.
Clint a new jacket. Why does it always say he means well, where everyone can see it except Clint?
Yeah, it's just on the back.
I think that's interesting, given that so Clint has an innately good ability to connect with people, and while he does occasionally say the wrong thing, given just a social flub here and there, he's got the riz, as it were.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's good at talking to people. It's just the matter of sometimes talking to people isn't what needs to happen.
Right. Well, and there is also the level, a question of how straightforward you want to be in a particular situation. Clint
Right.
is very much to say that's wrong, and sometimes if you say that to the wrong person, they go, "Oh, well, I will spite you now."
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's like you can say you might be able to get away with it with like certain gods, but like you say that's wrong to Hera, and you're a bumblebee now.
And that's why we picked up Boys Will Be Boys, one of the best boons out there.
It is so
It's
good.
it's the please don't smite me boon.
Yep.
Exactly. It's the hands in the pocket, sheepish shrug, and a smile. Oops, I didn't mean it that way.
Wah, wah.
It's that stock photo of Kevin James.
Yep.
100%.
Alrighty. Well, I think that will wrap it up for this episode of After Dawn. Thank you so much to Saul and Gavin for talking with us today. If you, dear audience, want more of this overcaffeinated and undermedicated dive into the people and plots of our HHS stories, After Dawn comes out every Thursday. If you want that buzz while it's at its freshest and piping hot, come find us on Patreon. For the cost of a cup of coffee, just $5, you'll get all our monthly episodes of After Dawn just as soon as they're ready to go. They will appear on YouTube about a month later. I am Bookkeeper, and we will see you next sunrise for the latest After Dawn.